Most people think that success is a matter of strategy, connections, or talent, but the truth is, it starts with things no one sees. In this video, I'll talk about 7 invisible habits of character that determine how far you'll rise, and at the end, a practice that will help you honestly assess yourself. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Did you know that the most important qualities that determine your destiny are the ones no one will ever see? Not your boss, not your neighbors, not even your friends. They don't lie on the surface. They stay silent when you stay silent. They show up when no one is watching. And it's these internal, invisible habits of character that decide who you'll become. Success doesn't begin with what you tell others, and it doesn't start with how your resume looks. It begins in those moments when you are alone with yourself, when you could cheat but you don't, when you could give up but you keep going, when you could delay, but you begin. I remember one time when I was young and completely broke, sitting in the kitchen of a small rented place. I had no money, no prospects, just debt, disappointment, and the feeling that I had already lost this game called life. And right then, when I thought all was lost, one man changed my perspective forever. His name was Errol Schaff. He didn't tell me I needed a new job. He didn't advise me to look for a better boss or more luck. He just looked me in the eyes and said, "Jim, if you want things to change for you, you have to change." That was my turning point, not an external one, but an internal one. And since then, I began to discover one by one those traits of character I used to consider secondary. But they, it turns out, are what build the foundation of any success. And I'm telling you this not because I read it in a book, but because I lived it. Every fingertip of my life that touched rock bottom knows it's inner strength, not external resources, that keeps you afloat. Because wealth, success, influence, they're not something you earn. They're something you attract by becoming the person worthy of them. We live in a world where everyone talks about the visible. Cars, suits, titles, projects, followers. But real building happens in silence, where there's no applause. Where your decision not to eat sweets at 11 p.m. matters more than a new time management course. Where your ability to keep a promise to yourself shapes you as a leader. And trust me, no one will notice it on day one. But on the 50th, the 100th, the world will start to change because you will change. I often say, work harder on yourself than on your job. And people ask, Jim, what does that mean in practice? It means developing those habits that don't get noticed immediately, but determine everything. It means waking yourself up, not just with an alarm clock, but with an inner commitment. It means not believing your own excuses. It means waking up every day with the thought, who am I becoming by doing what I'm doing? That's why today we're going to talk about 7 invisible habits that either shape your triumph or your stagnation. You won't find them in business textbooks. They're not taught in schools. But every successful person I've ever met had them in their daily practice. From entrepreneurs to athletes, from speakers to millionaires, they all had internal rituals that seemed insignificant, but in some did the incredible. Today you may be struggling with self-doubt. Maybe you're postponing your dreams because the world feels too complex. But I'm here to tell you, don't wait for it to get easier. Start working on yourself to become stronger. Because who you become is always more important than what you get. And if you learn to discipline your mind, your behavior, your micro choices, everything else will follow. Resources, opportunities, connections. They don't go to the smartest, they go to the most focused, the most consistent, the most reliable. To the one who, even without an audience, does what needs to be done. So stay with me. Because next, I'll reveal the first of the 7 invisible habits that shape every truly successful leader. But remember, at the end of this video, there's something special, a simple practice that will help you assess yourself by these 7 traits. It might just be your own awakening moment, like Errol Schaff once was for me. The first invisible habit, inner responsibility. This isn't the kind of responsibility you list in your employment record. It's not a section on your resume. It's not about who you report to. It's about whether you're willing to be the kind of person who takes responsibility even when it would be easy to shift the blame to someone else. I remember the day my mentor, Errol Schaff, asked me, Jim, why are you earning so little? I started explaining the economy, the company, the market, and he calmly replied, that's not all the company pays, that's all they pay you. And that phrase knocked the wind out of me because I realized the problem wasn't the economy, it was me. You see, every time you say it's all because of them, you're giving away your power. But when you say it's my responsibility, you take back control. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's painful, but this one habit changes everything. People with inner responsibility don't look for excuses. They look for solutions. They don't say, that's just how it happened. They ask, what could I have done better? And it doesn't mean beating yourself up for every mistake. It means asking daily, who am I becoming by making this decision? They're not perfect, but they're honest with themselves. And you know what? Life gravitates toward such people. These people become leaders, not because they give grand speeches, but because inside them is a quiet confidence that says, I am responsible for my path. Here's what I've noticed. The most successful people always start with themselves. They're the first to say, that was my fault, and the last to make excuses, because they know if you don't own the mistake, you can't fix it. Success isn't a reward for doing things right. It's the result of consistent responsibility, inner, quiet, invisible. And if today you want to become someone greater, start with this. Stop blaming. Not the circumstances, not other people. Tell yourself, everything in my life is the result of who I've become. And what my life will become will be the result of who I decide to become. The second invisible habit, determination without perfect conditions. Successful people don't wait, they act. Not when it's clear, not when it's convenient, but when it still hurts, feels scary, and is unclear. This habit, the ability to take a step even when there are no guarantees, is one of the strongest character traits I've ever encountered. I've seen how great things begin. They rarely look like the right moment. They look like a crossroads between wait a little longer and start now. And let me tell you, those who choose start now are the ones later called brave, wise, lucky. At 25, I was bankrupt. And when I first heard Errol Schaff say, don't wait, act, my first instinct was to put everything off until a better moment. But I remembered, there is no perfect time in life. There's only your decision to make it the right one. Look at success stories. Edward Barnes, who came to Edison with no money but full of determination. He didn't wait for an invitation. He created one. Determination isn't an emotion. It's not inspiration. It's a commitment to act no matter what. I know many of you are waiting. You want a little more knowledge, a bit more confidence, the perfect moment. But while you wait, someone else is acting. And here's the paradox. Action breeds confidence, not the other way around. Determination is a muscle, and if you don't train it, it weakens. When you start your day, don't ask yourself, am I ready? Ask, can I take just one step? And the answer will always be yes. One call, one page, one step. It doesn't have to be a revolution, but it has to be movement. Life doesn't reward the smartest. It rewards those who move forward, with determination, without guarantees, without applause, simply because they know action creates change. The third invisible habit, discipline in the small things. Oh, this is one of the most overlooked yet most powerful habits. Discipline isn't always about big things. More often it's about the little ones. And it's these little things that either build character or break it. The one who learns to do the simple things, getting up when they said they would, finishing what they started, keeping a promise even when no one hears it, is the one building their future. I didn't learn this from books. I learned it from life. I remember early in my journey, I gave myself a simple challenge. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual, just half an hour. But you know what? It was incredibly hard, not because of tiredness, but because I wasn't used to keeping promises to myself. And that's when I realized your ability to stick to the small things is the litmus test of your inner leadership. Successful people aren't defined by the size of their work, but by their precision in the details. They don't allow themselves to overlook the small because they know the small is the big in its early stage. Skip one workout and you'll skip the second. Don't finish one chapter and you won't finish the book. Make a promise and break it, and you just showed yourself that your word means nothing. Why is this important? Because everything we do trains us. Every small choice is a signal. I'm someone who follows through, or I'm someone who took the easy way again. And over time, these signals form your self-esteem, not the one you talk about, but the one you carry inside. I once heard the phrase, don't set goals if you're not ready to become the kind of person who achieves them. And discipline in the small things, that's the path we walk to become those people. It's not heroism, it's not perfectionism, it's self-respect, quiet, unshowy, internal. So think about it. What's the smallest promise you can keep today? Nothing grand, something simple, but do it, no exceptions. That'll be your first brick in a new foundation. The fourth invisible habit, choosing your environment. Yes, it's a habit, and not just a habit, it's a strategy that defines your horizon. I always say, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's not just a metaphor, that's a law. You'll never rise higher than your closest circle allows you to think. If you're surrounded by constant complaints, fear, limitations, gossip, don't be surprised if your potential stays asleep, because environment isn't just people, it's energy, it's norms, it's standards. And if you hear every day, why bother, be realistic, life's no fairy tale, you start to believe it. I understood this habit when I started attending seminars. At first I thought I'll learn something new, but it turned out the biggest benefit was the atmosphere of people who think big, who aren't afraid to dream, who work on themselves. And just by being around them, I began to see the world differently. Your habit should be to regularly check who is around me, who influences me, who is in my inner circle. You don't have to cut people off harshly, but you are obligated to expand your field. Seek out those who make you want to be better. And you know what's fascinating? A strong environment isn't always nearby, but it can be created through books, podcasts, videos, education, through people you don't know yet but already respect. That's also a choice. That's also a habit. Successful people never leave themselves alone with mediocrity. They invest in their environment, they filter conversations, they're mindful of what their mind consumes. And over the years, this pays off tremendously, because the world becomes a reflection of the environment in which you mature. Ask yourself, does this environment push me upward? If not, change it, because staying in the wrong environment is like growing roses in the shade. They won't wither right away, but they won't bloom either. The fifth invisible habit, the ability to think long-term. In a world that wants everything here and now, this habit almost seems archaic, but it's precisely what separates those who quit after the first failure from those who leave a legacy. Because success doesn't come to the fastest, it comes to those who don't stop. I've seen it many times. People start with lightning enthusiasm. They're excited, reading books, planning, signing up for courses. But after a month, it all fizzles out. Why? Because in their mind, there was no long-term picture, only a one-week snapshot. Successful people think in decades. They ask themselves, how will this action today affect my future self 5 years from now? They don't chase instant results. They work with delayed rewards, because they know greatness doesn't grow fast. Greatness requires patience, vision, and inner endurance. I remember in the early years of my business, I saw no results, only failures, doubts, and nighttime fears. But I kept in my mind the image of myself 10 years ahead, a speaker, a mentor, a person of influence. And every time I wanted to quit, I asked myself, is this action a step toward that image? And that was enough to keep me going. The habit of long-term thinking is the discipline to see beyond pain, laziness, or disappointment. It means continuing even when results are still invisible, because everything truly worthwhile comes with time. Ask yourself now, does what you're doing today align with your ideal self 5 to 10 years from now? If not, change direction immediately, because every day without a vector is a day of lost growth. The sixth invisible habit, emotional self-regulation. The world will provoke you every day. People will be wrong. Circumstances will be unfair. Sometimes you'll be betrayed, sometimes ridiculed, sometimes forgotten. And what you do with those emotions will determine your trajectory. I always say emotions are guests. You don't have to chase them away. But you also shouldn't let them steer your home. Successful people aren't those who don't feel anger, fear, or hurt. They're the ones who don't let those emotions dictate their actions. This habit, managing yourself when you want to explode, not responding to provocation, stepping back for a moment instead of burning bridges. It's the art of the pause, the moment between stimulus and response, and that moment is the territory of power. I learned this the hard way. There were times when my impatience, my sensitivity broke opportunities. I spoke harshly and lost trust. I took offense and closed doors. Only when I learned to observe my emotions instead of reacting to them did I start moving to a new level. You see, emotions aren't enemies, they're signals. But if we react instantly without a filter, we give up our will. And success is always a matter of will, a matter of inner calm, the ability to stay centered when everything around is chaos. Train this habit daily. Someone's rude to you, smile and stay silent. Something didn't work out, don't beat yourself up, analyze. Something triggered you, look at why. Because every time you don't react but respond, you become stronger. It's invisible, no one will notice right away. But after a year, 3, 5, it becomes your new energy, your presence, your magnetism. Because the world instinctively gravitates toward those who are calm in chaos. The seventh invisible habit, the habit of learning from every situation. This isn't just about education. It's not another course or a new book. It's an inner mindset. Everything that happens is for my growth. Successful people don't just go through experiences, they extract meaning from them. And it's this ability to turn any event, good or painful, into a lesson that makes them masters of their lives. I've seen it many times. One man loses a business and breaks down. Another loses the exact same business but says, "I just got an MBA minus the diploma." What separates them? Not external circumstances, only inner philosophy. One asks, "Why did this happen to me?" The other asks, "What is this here to teach me?" I used to be the one who looked for someone to blame, who feared mistakes, but life doesn't stop throwing challenges. And at some point you either learn or you get bitter, and the bitter don't grow. Growth belongs to those who ask, "What's the lesson for me, even in this?" This habit is invisible because it doesn't require a stage. It shows up in your internal monologue, in how you reflect on your day, in how you handle criticism, in how you listen not to reply but to understand. It lives in journals, in the silence before sleep, in the questions you ask yourself when others just move on. And you know what's most paradoxical? People who learn from everything are the most flexible, the least broken, and always a few steps ahead, because they're not afraid to make mistakes. They're afraid to miss the lesson. I'm telling you, become a student of life, not just at seminars, but in cues, in failures, in arguments, in the quiet of mourning. Be the one who turns experience into wisdom, because that is the highest form of growth, and that is the path to true greatness. And now, if you've listened this far, that already says a lot about you. It means there's a voice inside you that wants more, wants deeper, wants the truth. And for you, I've prepared a small inner challenge. No grades, no pressure, just an honest conversation with yourself. 5 questions, rate each from 1 to 10. 1, almost never. 10, I live it every day. Now let's begin. Answer as you go. Don't pause. Feel your heart's reaction, not your mind's. First question, to what extent do I take full responsibility for my life without excuses and without blaming others? 1, I often look for who's at fault. 10, I always ask myself, what can I change? Think about it. Responsibility isn't a burden. It's the key to power. If you hold it, you're in control. Second question, do I take decisive action even when I don't have full clarity or perfect conditions? 1, I wait, delay, hesitate. 10, I start even when it's scary. Because remember, the world rewards not the best, but the boldest. Third question, do I keep small promises to myself, daily actions, micro goals, simple habits? 1, I give up easily. 10, I trust my word even when no one's watching, because it's these little things that are the bricks of character. Fourth question, does my environment lift me up or pull me down? 1, I feel energetically drained after interactions. 10, I'm inspired by those around me. Sometimes changing your circle isn't betrayal, it's healing. Fifth question, am I able to find a lesson in every situation, even when it's painful or uncomfortable? 1, I get stuck in resentment. 10, I extract meaning from everything life brings, because when you start to learn, life starts to teach. Remember these numbers. Don't judge yourself if 1 was a 3 or a 4. It's not a verdict, it's a map, it's direction. And I invite you to come back to these questions again after watching. Write them down, reflect, define your starting point. And if this video was helpful to you, let me know. Hit the like button, it's your way of saying I'm here. Share in the comments, which of the 7 habits resonated with you the most? And of course, subscribe, because in the next video I'll give you a practice that connects these qualities to real daily action. Your transformation isn't a matter of chance. It starts with honesty, with awareness, and with 1 step. Success isn't a summit you get driven to. It's a path you walk barefoot, stone by stone, step by step, and no one sees how many wounds are on your feet. But when you rise, people applaud, and they say, "He got lucky," and you just smile and stay silent, because you know it wasn't luck, it was character. Today, we didn't talk about techniques, not about life hacks, but about what makes everything else matter, about the 7 qualities no one sees in a social media feed, but that are felt in your energy, in your gaze, in your presence. Responsibility, determination, discipline, environment, long-term thinking, emotional maturity, and a constant desire to learn. This isn't a checklist, it's not a trend, it's the foundation. It's what builds you, not just as a performer, but as a person. And when that becomes part of you, success becomes a natural result. I often repeat one simple phrase that once saved me from inner chaos. Don't ask for life to be easier, ask to become stronger. And today I give you that same call. Don't chase the result. Become the kind of person who attracts it. Don't compete for approval. Become someone worth becoming even without an audience, because the most important competitions have no judges, and the highest rewards are internal. There were moments in my life when I thought I had lost, when all I had was shame, debt, and despair. But even then, even at rock bottom, you can choose. What do I do now? Give up or lift my head? And every time I lifted my head, it wasn't because of motivation. It was because of character, quietly built day by day. You are not your results. You are not your age, your degree, or your past. You are your habits. The ones in silence, the ones no one praises, the ones you repeat when you don't feel like it. They are your true capital. So go and build them, not in a rush, but without stopping. And one day you'll wake up and realize you're no longer chasing success because you've become someone who draws it in. This isn't the end, it's the beginning, because now you see what truly matters. And if you take just one thing from this video, let it be this thought: success is not an event, it's an identity. It's who you become when no one is watching. And I'm with you. And in the next video, we'll go even deeper, because the most exciting part begins when you stop running and start growing.